Therapy Chat Podcast, episode 252.
This is the Therapy Chat Podcast with Laura Reagan, LCSW-C. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. And now, here's your host, Laura Reagan, LCSW-C.
Today's episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes. Between writing notes, filing insurance claims, and scheduling with clients, it can be hard to stay organized. That's why I recommend Therapy Notes. Their easy-to-use platform lets you manage your practice securely and efficiently. Visit therapynotes.com to get 2 free months of Therapy Notes today. Just use the promo code TherapyChat when you sign up for a free trial at therapynotes.com. Hi, welcome back to Therapy Chat. I'm your host, Laura Reagan, and I hope you're doing well. Today is November 4th, and in the U.S., we do not yet know who our next president will be. So everybody's kind of waiting to find out what's going on with that. And while that is happening, our everyday lives continue. We're living with this pandemic. And so many of us who are parents or teachers or therapists are aware of the challenges of virtual learning that kids are having to do because of the pandemic. I know in different places, schools may be open at this time, but not meeting in person, and other schools are meeting in person. It varies from city to city and state to state, but a lot of us therapists are practicing virtually, meeting with people using online video platforms. And that is also true for therapists who are working with children. So this is something that many of us really didn't know how to approach. I know for us in my practice, we have a wonderful playroom that the children who come to see our therapists love. Even adults walking by say, wow, I'd love to play in there. And I really miss having our space and our beautiful playroom available to us, but looking forward to when we can resume our services there in person. And for now, we're all practicing using video for our sessions. But the therapists in my practice have adapted beautifully to working with children using telehealth, teletherapy, but it can be very, very challenging. It's a lot different from being together in person. So today's episode is not about the election. It's not really about the pandemic. It's about doing teletherapy with kids. And my guest is Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge. She's been on Therapy Chat in the past when she was talking about PANS and PANDAS. She's extremely passionate about her work with children, and I always love talking with her. In fact, we usually spend about an hour talking before we start recording because we just enjoy talking together so much. So if you are a parent or a therapist working with children or a teacher, you are going to want to listen into my conversation with Roseann, where she is talking about her new book, The Teletherapy Toolkit, which I think will be very helpful for anyone who is using a video platform to work with children. So without anything else, let's just go ahead and dive right into that conversation. In the meantime, just one more little thing. Just want to say, if you are in the U.S. and you are stressed about the election, I just want you to know you're not alone, and we are all going to get through this together. Take care. Hi, welcome back to Therapy Chat. I'm your host, Laura Reagan, and today I'm very happy to be speaking with a guest who I call a friend, Roseann Capanna-Hodge. Dr. Roseann, thank you for being my guest again on Therapy Chat for the 3rd time today.
Well, Laura, I'm so excited to be here, and I just always love talking to you, and you and I could talk about anything for hours. So grateful to have this experience and share it with everybody listening.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here because, as you said, you and I find it very easy to talk to one another. And I think it's because you're such an interesting person with so many different areas of interest that you have, that you pursue and are really knowledgeable about. So last time we were talking about PANS and PANDAS and neurofeedback. And this time we're talking about your new book, which is called the Teletherapy Toolkit. And I know that some people who are listening are going to be like, their ears are going to perk up as soon as they hear that. So I want to talk about your book and using teletherapy with kids during the pandemic and just all the time. And but before we even go there, let's just start off by you letting our audience know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am an integrative and pediatric mental health expert, and I'm on a big mission to change the way we view and treat children's mental health. And I'm doing that by this work, by training therapists through this book and offering courses and programs that are CE based, by the way, APA CEs, and then working with parents and teaching them that they have the ability to reduce and reverse their child's mental health issues. And, all my work, as we've talked about in the past, is all based on a lot of research, and I only use evidence-based tools. And, through this almost 3 decades, it's 3 decades next year of my work, that I really have been using neuroscience and research to refine my process. And I want to share that. I want to teach therapists all that I know so that they can just be these rock stars, and now rock stars in teletherapy, as well as in person, but to teach parents that there is hope and there is absolutely a way to make things okay for their kids. And we really need to get that message out, because the world is suffering, not just because of the pandemic, but long before the pandemic, children are in a mental health crisis. And, all of us therapists that are working with families know this, and we have an ability to help them at a deeper level.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because it's so true when we think about like the adverse childhood experiences study. For one, we know that children, what happens to them during childhood impacts them and us throughout our entire lives. And so many of us are really passionate about trying to make a difference with children while they're children, instead of trying to help that wounded child inside of that, middle-aged adult who has suffered for so long. So, and I know that it's been a big challenge for many therapists and also teachers, occupational therapists, physical therapists who are working directly with clients and patients, and now everything has to be virtual.
Yes, my goodness. And, people have therapists and school professionals, occupational therapists, all those people, we've been thrown into teletherapy. Mm-hmm. And, what happened to me and why I decided to write, the Teletherapy Toolkit, which I call the Therapist Handbook for Treating Children and Teens, is that, we have a large center here in Connecticut, and I have a team of psychotherapists who are amazing and, doing all they can. And just like all the therapists that are listening, like really trying to make such a difference and move the dial behaviorally, socially, emotionally, cognitively, for these families and children that they work with. And once I realized in June that, and we're a suburb of New York, and so we were like the epicenter of COVID, and it was brutal. And 3 of our staff members lost a parent during the COVID, and just highly affected. And very strict procedures here, both Connecticut and New York, as well, of course, New Jersey and in New England. And once June hit, we realized, guess what? People aren't coming back to the center. And we opened up our center. We had closed for 10 weeks and we opened it back up in May because we do neurofeedback. And the bulk of the psychotherapy clients didn't want to come in. And I was just sort of floored by that because, I was ready to come back in, and some of our families were ready to come back in. Certainly our new clients wanted to be seen in person. And so I was worried about the quality of the therapy that our therapists were providing because, I believe we do a ton of supervision in our office, and supervision is an amazing thing And we just believe it's necessary for a lot of reasons. And our therapists love it, right? And we do deep work and very specialized work. And we want to make sure that they have all the resources available. And so I was literally looking on Amazon. Is there a book? Is there an activity guide? What's online? And there was no book. And there was virtually nothing. And so it was late June and I'm sitting in a hot tub, Laura, and I'm going on Amazon. I was like, maybe there's a different word, right? You know, when you're searching. And I put in tele and all of a sudden health activities came up and the light bulb went off. And I was like, there really is no book. There is no book. And I said, I'm going to write this book. So this is like 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night. And you know me, Laura, right? I had just written, no lie, 3 books during COVID. And
you're an extremely prolific content creator.
I'm a content creator like crazy. And 2 of them are smaller books, but one of them is a pretty big book, was a couple hundred pages. So that Wednesday night, I stayed up and I wrote the frame and I said, here's the outline. And the next day I came in and I've got interns, right? And I said, girls, we're writing another book, because they helped me get research and they helped me they helped me do the APA citations. My other one book has 35 pages of citations. Ooh. And I was like, I ain't doing that. So I put my college student, and she was like, I'm great at those, so hopefully you all will like them when you see them. So I came in and I said, listen, girls, we need a lot of graphics in this book. So what the Teletherapy Toolkit is, literally, it's a handbook. It's a soup to nuts book that has every essential component of what a child and adolescent therapist needs, like from how to set up your sessions to how to engage. It has all the activities for engagement, and then it has dozens and dozens and dozens, because this is a 400 plus page book of activities designed for telehealth. And it's the most common issues that children face. It also has information sheets for parents. And it's a resource, because I know that I've been doing teletherapy for 10 years and our therapists have been doing teletherapy, but mostly in person, right? Mm-hmm. And we need resources. Like, I remember feeling like this when I got out of grad school, right? Like, you get all this training and then you get dumped into grad school, and depending on who your supervisor is, you are kind of on your own. And right? And when I got out of grad school, I gravitated, thankfully I took solution-focused therapy class when I was in grad school, and I started working mostly in a school. And solution-focused therapy is a beautiful thing in a school. And I really gravitated towards that. And I think it's because there were so many practical components, and there was great books that were sort of like ready to use. And, so many therapists are feeling like, hopefully they're finding their groove in teletherapy. I don't think they fully are, because I'm in the Facebook groups with you. And I see what people are commenting on. We feel inadequate. We feel like we did when we got out of school, because I don't know any graduate program. I have current graduates that are training people for teletherapy, and there's no resources. So this is what this is. This is the resource. And I made the APA CEU based course. So that goes along with it, just to give people that confidence. And
you mean there's a course for therapists about doing telehealth with kids as well as the book?
Yes.
Awesome.
So that launches at the same time. Okay. And I have the special designation that I am an APA approved program sponsor. So I can offer CE based credits for even online programs. So this is what we did. And so you can use this and get going immediately. I mean, and people can, in the book, there's a way for people to actually get these graphics that I have. So there's like more than 200 graphics. And what does that mean? It means that you can put these on your screen. You can send these in advance. You can do things. So I adapted those same things we were doing in person and made it that you can use in a session. So everything is grounded in, theory. I'm a real stickler as a supervisor in that, we expect our therapists to go deep. We are not generalists, and we want our therapists to pick something, right? Like, so I have an OCD ERP therapist, and oh my gosh, she is amazing. And it really requires that deep training. And I think as you are really a trauma therapist, and that deep training to really get in there. So I try to hit the most major areas that I know as a 30-year therapist for kids and families that, really are going to get you some change for your clients and really address their therapeutic needs. Because I think we all jumped into teletherapy in the very beginning thinking, well, I just need to tide it over. I need to Band-Aid it. And now who's going back to their office, Laura?
Right. We're not at this point. I mean, we will someday, but it's going to be a long time. And so, yeah, I mean, what you said about Band-Aiding it is so true. It's like we were all, was kind of grappling with, oh my God, like making a quick pivot. And then, of course, everybody was like for 2 weeks and, now it's been, going on 9 months, but, here anyway, and in New York, it started sooner. But, you and I were talking before we really started recording about the different needs of psychotherapy through telehealth. You were saying, what's therapeutic and what isn't is really important to focus on now that this is the way that many of us will be doing therapy. And especially with kids, because kids are kids. So you have to really know that you're doing what's therapeutic and how to deliver it therapeutically.
Yeah. And, therapists have that ability. Their confidence is shooken. Like I've spoken to so many therapists and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, do I even have the right lighting? And, it always cracks me up. You can tell who's been doing any type of virtual meetings, like I have every selfie light and, I have all of that. I've learned over time when I would watch somebody and be like, what kind of lighting do you have?
And, what's your secret?
What's your
Barbara
secret?
Walters?
Yeah. And even the newscasters, I'm like, come on, you're a newscaster, get a better cam, And, like even when you got on with me, I'm on my laptop. I have a professional studio because I do so much TV, so much media. And, my laptop is up on a bunch of books because guess what? I'm a woman in my 40s. You should never be looking, you should be looking up. Not
That's right.
So, having the gear, I mean, we even go over into the gear and, all just different kinds of components to really do all those pieces. And, I think we now know it's here to stay, Laura, just like what you said. I mean, if we look at the Spanish flu, it was a 3-year time span for full recovery. I mean, that's just virus science. We may not want to accept that. I think some therapists have totally embraced teletherapy and actually are loving it. Even in my own team, like I have one therapist who's like, oh, I'm loving it. And I actually love being in people's houses and watching what goes down because it's shortcutting so much of the family work. And,
it's very true because doing in-home therapy, actually in person, as we once used to do, and I've done, me too. It's a different experience than sitting in your office where they're on your turf. So when you're doing teletherapy, it's kind of both, but also they get to see your home too. And that has some benefits and challenges as well. Benefits
and challenges for sure. Like you have to tell your kids not to come in or, all of those other things. I do so many intakes and, they'll be like, I'll be like, are you taking magnesium? And they're like, let me go get the bottle, there's so many cool things about it. It's pretty fascinating. And then, we have other therapists who, I have one of my therapists that works with a lot of littles who are extremely dysregulated. And she's like, oh man, I got to get some of these kids in. Like, so she's doing a combination and she's spending time kind of regulating and it's across the board. And some kids, like some of our therapists are like, no way we thought this was going to work. And, with some kind of kids and some people just really just depending on, what they're doing. And obviously we jumped in immediately with strategies and I started putting together strategies for my team. And then I was like, I'm going to make a book. I'm like, this needs to happen because we need to, I'm always the go-giver and we need to support each other. And this should not be mysterious. And we absolutely can be amazing. And we just have to remember our job is to meet therapeutic goals. And, I even have a therapeutic activity decision tree in the book where it walks you through, is this activity helping a goal or is it not? Because in some of the groups that I've been in, Facebook groups, as people got started, they're stuck on the engagement stage. They're stuck on icebreaker activities. And there's so much more that we can do. And I think people are feeling unsure as therapists, as clinicians, as school professionals on how to do that through the screen. And that's what I really did for people because, it's something I do and I'm good at it. And there's a strategy behind it. And we have theory behind all of these, techniques. They're really modified, well-tested techniques that are adapted to the teletherapy format in a way that is so easy for people to just literally plug in and start using. Oh, I have a kid with ADHD and he has this problem. Let me look in this book, and as I talked about, that's what I loved about when I used to do solution-focused therapy. Like it was very, very much like a cookbook. Like I could open it up as a novice and say, where do I go? But then I outgrew that. And this is therapeutic work. This is much more deep. Certainly I have icebreaker activities in here, but it's not a book of icebreaker activities. It's a book of how to deal with the most challenging issues facing kids and families today.
Yeah. And it's very, very much needed. There's no question about that. Let's just pause for a moment so I can give you a little bit more information about why I love therapy notes. I switched to therapy notes a few years ago. I'd say it's about 3 years now, I believe. And I have never regretted it. I was very happy with the EHR I used before, but therapy notes is more intuitive. I love the interface. The customer service is fantastic. And I love how I can get my notes done quickly because I can customize the template that I use for my notes. And there are opportunities to put check marks rather than having to write out the intervention used. So I have cut my time spent writing notes way down, which is wonderful because I like to focus on seeing clients. I know documentation is an important part of our work, but it can also be time consuming. And that is why I love using therapy notes. If you are considering switching EHRs or you're looking for one to use in your practice, give therapy notes a try. You can get 2 free months by using the code TherapyChat. Now let's get back to our interview. What are some of the types of problems that you think, well, what's in the book. So what are some of the types of problems that are addressed through the strategies and techniques in your book? Yeah.
So first of all, unlike other books that are about therapeutic activities in that same kind of format. So like if you can visualize, a typical strategy page is, what is it? What materials you need? What are the instructions? And then if there's a graphic with it, something, right? Like, I have something called Break It Down. Break It Down explains what it is. It's related to attention and executive functioning. And then there's a strategy sheet that you can either pop up on a screen and do with a whiteboard. You can do on a whiteboard there, or you can send it to a teenage client and have them fill it out. So there's multiple ways to do it, which I love because everybody's different and process is different. But there's a lot of things related to attention. But this book is one of the first books. Everything has a somatic feel to it. So we really believe in our center that you need to connect to your body. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah, agree 100%.
Yeah. And so we do this work all of our therapists are somatic experience trained. And we teach kids to connect their body, right? So when we get our somatic flags, it is our body's way of saying, hello, pay attention to this uncomfortable symptom and deal with it. Instead, our culture has moved to shove it down, right?
Definitely.
Take a pill for it. Do something else. No, this is there as almost a primitive reflex to be there to say, find a way to manage it, right? And find a healthy way to manage it. So what we do in our questions, right? So there's questions to listen to it. We really are teaching therapists to teach kids and teach parents on how to get kids to connect to that. And really, with that is like sort of the most basic part about understanding what you're experiencing. And if we could teach kids this, and teenagers, boy, I really believe we can prevent a lot of clinical issues, and address clinical issues much quicker. I mean, that's what we see in our work all the time. And we get cases where, adults have been in and out of psychiatric hospitals, and with the combination of SE and EFT and doing neurofeedback, we move the dial quick. And then we go to cognitive behavioral, right? Because you can't access that frontal lobe. You can't access that rational brain when you're in an activated state. And SE is such a key, like it's in there. So we have a lot of an SE body connection focused, infused in every single activity. But
that makes me love it even more, honestly.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So, and Peter Levine is who you should listen to. There's a lot of other people. This is not somatic experiencing. This is really teaching kids to connect to their body and make that somatic connection. But true somatic experiencing therapy, that's Peter Levine,
Yeah.
And that's where you go to. So I always got to give props to the people who gave, us these theories, and it's so important in their work. These are pioneers, right? Mm-hmm. But this is that breakdown that's usable, because I think sometimes as child therapists, we didn't understand the importance of it. And we think that somatic experiencing is only for trauma. No, what I'm saying is it's the most base instinct. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, right, we build this resiliency mindset, right? So that resiliency is about, it's three parts to resiliency mindset. It's how you view it, how you manage it, and how you recover. And this is where kids are really breaking down. Like, everyone always asks me, like, what's happening in the last 30 years that you see? And I'm like, oh boy, there is no stress tolerance. And stress is at a high level. And so we have to help with that. And connecting to the body helps to change your mindset and helps you recover and helps you manage. And then we get that nervous system much more regulated and less reactive. And you come in with these strategies, right? So some of the most common things that our children are facing, this is what we're addressing in this book. So, it is attention problems. It's anxiety. It's mood. It's social skills. We have a great section on obsessive compulsive disorder, which we're working on a certification process for therapists for, because we feel like as a group of people who do a lot of ERP, there's not enough concrete programs for therapists, and boy, is ERP effective. So the book really deals with those things in the ways that, really give you that easy to use, highly effective, but evidence-based and solidly grounded in theory tools, that is essentially a cookbook. And who doesn't love that, right? Because I'm always about, there are some techniques that are completely from us, but a lot of these techniques are things that we already all were doing. I just modified them and made them like just amazing for teletherapy that you can just open this book and use and not spend so much time. I felt like we were reinventing the wheel before I put this book together, and all the therapists were like scouring the internet, and, I kept trying to buy books on Amazon and some games and this and that. And, right? Didn't you feel like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a mad dash from the moment that we shifted to telehealth for the 2 child therapists in my practice. You know, like, how are we going to do play therapy? We have a playroom in our suite, and, you know, they work so well with the kids that they serve in our playroom, but suddenly there's no playroom and we're both divided by, separated by a screen. So it was like, what can we do? And I must say those 2 really adapted beautifully considering the stress of that shift. But I mean, I think one of the things that really feels right about your book is like having a concrete resource, because therapists and teachers and OTs and whoever else is working with children right now, and parents, the kids are having their experience and we're having ours. And it's sometimes having like a concrete resource you can just turn to, and, just like making a recipe, like, how do I do a baked chicken? Okay. Yeah. $3.75. It's like, I would know this, but I can't access that prefrontal cortex because I'm in this dysregulated state. So just having something to like ground into sounds invaluable.
Time.
Yes.
We don't have time, Laura. Like, sometimes like, I'm doing a bar class and my 10-year-old's like, hey mom. And then he jumps on my back, like there's no separation. Then I got the cat there. I mean, this is what happens. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I love every minute of him jumping on my back in a bar class, but thankfully the screen's off. But it's, you're absolutely right. We need resources that are, I have hundreds of books that I've had. I'm like a book junkie and I'm always buying books for our therapists. And, and we called it, the handbook, a therapist handbook for treating children and adolescents, because it is the handbook. It's something you're going to want on your desk. And I wanted to create something that just brought a lot of value and made people feel better about their skills. I mean, I hate, it's all about how you feel, right? And I think I saw so many of my friends feeling like, just like they did, as I said, coming out of grad school, like, can I do this? Do I want to do this? And you can. And, not every state is allowing people to see people really fully in person at this point. And there's so many restrictions. So many of my friends were sharing space in private practice or in school, and they don't have the same kind of spacing. And this just really walks people through. And then, the next level is the courses. And we even have courses with coaching calls, with supervision. I mean, we really thought about like, we're doing this, like, let's share it with people. And, my goal is to change the way we view and treat children's mental health. And that's what I want to do, is have therapists, be working at a level that they feel amazing and really be able to move the dial for these kids, because kids are struggling long before the pandemic, and now families are suffering. I love to hear that your play therapist pivoted. We have a play therapy section in the book. We even put checklists. So I'm the queen of checklists. So there's a checklist of who, give it to the parent, and you could check off what you want in advance. And this is something that, school professionals, they might have to put packets together if they have the resources to send to parents. I mean, every level of income is out there, and some kids, their family, doesn't even have money for crayons or products and things like that. So we try to be creative. They can share things on a screen. A lot of the platforms for mental health and teletherapy and telehealth now have a whiteboard. Mm-hmm. So that's been a great resource for therapists. I use the HIPAA compliant version of Zoom, and I've always used the HIPAA compliant of Zoom, and boy is Zoom pretty darn awesome and easy. But there's a lot of amazing platforms out there, even though I see everybody complaining about that they can't keep up right now. I think things have shifted, but it's definitely a time for therapists. They are realizing that they have to pivot, right? And they can.
I'm also thinking school counselors. I didn't think about that, but if school counselors are working virtually now.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it. And as somebody who used to be a school psychologist and been in the trenches and really knows, this is very much for a school person. I think school people have some of the greatest challenges because when people go to therapy in an agency or in private practice, people are signing up for that.
Right.
In a school, yet kind of sometimes we would drag people along. And so engaging and having those techniques that keep people alert and active are critical. And, a lot of therapists are falling back on traditional talk therapy. Mm-hmm. And, our kids are too activated for that. We're all experiencing Zoom fatigue. I'm sure you are. Mm-hmm. I got my blue blockers right next to me. And, we need those techniques, right? And, they're for the people that are in schools, some schools are completely virtual, right? Like California said they're not going back and other places are hybrid and some people are 100%. I mean, there's so much that has to go into these sessions because they have to clean. I mean, our whole center is completely different and we can't see people at the volume we used to see people. And some people are choosing to do, the clients are choosing to do teletherapy. Now they've acclimated. There's a convenience aspect of it. There's so many positives about teletherapy. And, I think, Laura, one of the things I didn't talk about is, teletherapy technically has been around since the 60s because it started with phone therapy. And the research is very consistent that it's as effective as in person. So for some therapists who've been resistant to it because they feel like it's not as effective, the research tells us something different, right? And I don't know a therapist who isn't doing some combination at this point.
Yeah. I know that there are like some settings where it just won't work, like social service agencies that serve people who are homeless and things like that. But in most cases, it's a pretty great option. I used it sporadically when needed, but I wasn't like ever a really huge fan of it. It was always like a second best kind of thing to me, but I've definitely seen some unintended positive consequences that surprised me, like people being more comfortable going deeper because they're in their home where they're comfortable.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I had a situation. Oh my gosh, we have so many funny stories of just different things that have happened because they're showing themselves. But, I had a situation where the entire family showed up and, for the intake, including like the baby in the diapers and the whole intake with the baby jumping up in front. And, the parents started off and they're like, we have zero parenting skills. Like don't know what we're doing. And I was like, no. And then after, finally the kids settled down and after me settling the kids down. And I was like, do you ever put any boundaries? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, we only have up to go. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I don't know I don't think I would have you would have seen something in the session. But boy, was it like, it was wrangling. They just didn't have the skills. And you know what? They've done so beautifully, learning the skills because again, we had nowhere to go but up.
Of course. And whenever there's anybody who has no boundaries, there's a good reason why.
Yeah, exactly.
That they just weren't taught them. And then, that's a wonderful opportunity for the whole family.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then I learned, quickly after that I had to tell people like, if you're bringing your 18-month-old to the session, like in person, we're like, you can't bring, kids under age 12 to the intake for that. You know what I mean? That's there's multiple appointments when people come in for a brain map, but the one where we review it, it's too long for a kid that young to be sitting there, plus the parents have to ask things that are inappropriate. So it just created like, you have to have a different process for a teletherapy session, and some of it's awesome. And some of it is like, okay, I need a workaround, like, and what am I going to do the next time that's better, So we are learning, it's kind of like, I think most people have been feeling like they're building as they go, instead of like building a used 1989 Hyundai. Let's build let's build a Bentley. You know what I mean? So, and I just try to just put in there everything that I've been doing all these years and really just make it user friendly and just so accessible and effective. So we're so ridiculously excited around here. And I know that this will be a resource for all kinds of professionals working with kids, not just licensed therapists and psychologists. So, all of our school people who are just faced with a challenge. The educational system is sort of like the Wild West right now. Mm-hmm. And nobody is doing anything the same. It's unbelievable to me how just even, every component of education, there's no framework. And they're all just doing the best they can. And the great news is the kids are adapting like unbelievable. And they've been great about wearing masks and, just following the restrictions because they're just so happy to be in school.
Yeah, I mean, kids can be so adaptable. We always say how resilient kids are. And everyone has inner resilience, but kids can be so adaptable. It's oftentimes, sometimes families are actually like interfering with how kids could just go right along with it. And parents are like, no, but we're all just trying the best we can to be flexible and figure out what's the best thing to do. And it's not an easy time to be a parent, a teacher, a child. It's just not an easy time.
An employee. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, God bless all the parents out there that are home learning, working from home, it's rough. You know what I mean? And
it is. It seems like the biggest thing that is across the board impacting people that I'm seeing as a result of the pandemic. It's like not everyone is impacted by the health effects. But I have, at least for people who have families, this whole situation with virtual school or in person and trying to keep the family safe is so overwhelming for people.
Overwhelming. Yeah. So overwhelming. I have lots of information out there about this, but you really got to have structure and routine. Kids crave it. You need it. It's such a sense of control and comfort for children, and they need that. And people need to practice self-forgiveness. Like, it's okay. Like, we're all going to be okay, and we're going to get through this. This is not a short-term thing. This is something that's going to be around for a while, and we'll look back at it, and kids will remember. And they'll be all right. Like my dad made it through World War II,
Yeah.
He's okay, So it's not pleasant. And this is just life. And we really have to focus on, I think one of the best parts, silver lining is that I do see people recalibrating and focusing on their mental health and physical health and really prioritizing that. I see a lot of families being like, wait a second, what was I doing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Let's do better. So I do love that, Laura. It kind of stinks where it came from, and there's certainly a hum in the world of stress, but this definitely, is a challenge we will get through.
Yes. Well, Roseann, I know you have something for our listeners. Am I right?
I do. So I have just a free download. It's for any professional working with children, and it's for any parent. And I have my best coping statements, and there's over 100 different ways to talk to kids to help them to manage stress. And it's sort of like this not secret thing, but it's like been a secret power that we've been using in the office for I don't know how long. And we just teach parents, we teach kids ways to kind of tolerate, deal with, manage, however you want to say it, get through and praise them and learn how to deal with that stress and make them feel good about it and feel empowered. And so it's 100 different statements to help a child or a teenager go through it. And you can go to Teletherapy Toolkit bonus.com and you just enter your email and it's a free download. And, it's definitely been, like I said, a resource for so many of the thousands of families we've been working with. And, I just wanted to share that with people.
Thank you. And tell us where everybody who's listening can find all of the stuff you have going on, your book, your courses?
Yeah. So you can go to teletherapytoolkit.com and you'll see that there'll be an Amazon link. The book's on Amazon, and, hopefully people will buy the book and leave a kind review. If you don't like it, don't leave a review. No, just kidding.
Kind reviews only, please.
5 stars only, but, I really made this book with all my heart and really just trying to support children's mental health and my fellow therapists. So, I've trained, I was a college professor for therapists. I've trained so many therapists in our center, and, we've all been there. And I'm just going to say that you absolutely can just be a rock star. And, this is something that is going to help you. And I know, that it will not only help therapists, but all those beautiful families and children that we get the privilege of helping every day.
Well, Roseann, thank you so much for what you're doing in the world, which really makes such a big difference. And thank you for being my guest on Therapy Chat.
Well, thank you, my friend, for having me. And, I listen to your podcast and you help so many therapists. So thank you for your work.
Thanks for saying that. Today's episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes. There are many ways to keep your practice organized, but Therapy Notes is the best. Their easy-to-use, secure platform lets you not only do your billing, scheduling, and progress notes, but also create a client portal to share documents and request signatures. Plus, they offer amazing unlimited phone support, so when you have a question, you can get help fast. To get started with the practice management software trusted by over 60,000 professionals, go to therapynotes.com and start a free trial today. If you enter promo code TherapyChat, they will give you 2 months to try it out for free.
Thank you for listening to Therapy Chat with your host, Laura Reagan, LCSW-C. For more information, please visit therapychatpodcast.com.